Welcome back to JDM Legends, presented by Turn 14 Distribution, where today we wrap up a final couple of loose ends before this car is officially ready to go to the dyno, riding on this new Space Invaders creature right here. Exciting times here at the shop. We are down to the last couple of small things we need to do to this car before it is ready to go to the dyno. And I don't know, are you guys old enough to remember Space Invaders? PT, do you remember that game where you shoot these guys to come along?
Very 8-bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought that kind of reminded me of it. Anyway, if you're not old enough to remember, I apologize. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know what I'm talking about. But before we get to this, we've got to put some power into this car, but maybe not the kind you're thinking of. You're not used to being able to lift up a battery of this dimension with one finger. Like, it is crazy light. And
what's it weigh?
Yeah, let's find out. We've got our little scale here. Turn this guy on. Put them on here. We weigh 7.3 pounds.
Wow.
Which it kind of blows your mind when you lift it up. And obviously you can get this in many different sizes and form factors to fit your needs. They offer, you know, really small ones for motorcycles. They offer them for marine, all kinds of stuff. So this just happens to be the right form factor to be a direct drop into the Supra. They also sent us one of their conventional batteries, which has 3,300 max amps versus like a stock battery at 580. This one, by the way, has 1,000 amps, so it's still almost twice as powerful as that.
Wow, so the lithium one is still twice as powerful.
Yeah, it's got a lot of jam, but 3,300, like, this thing will start a tractor, and I get the feeling it's gonna be pretty heavy. Oh, sorry, I gotta clear the scale here. All right, this guy weighs 51 pounds.
Yeah, beast.
Pretty beefy. And this, you know, garden variety AC Delco, buy it at your local Napa type of battery with only 500, let me clear the battery, or the scale here. It weighs 39 pounds. So this guy is a little heavier, 10 pounds heavier, but has like, what, 6 times the power? So
I guess if you're building a car with a stereo system, that's the way to go?
Yeah, maybe that's
I don't know.
application for it. That's a good question. But in any case, jump onto XS Power's website. They offer a huge variety of batteries, everything from, you know, conventional stuff to very lightweight lithium stuff in a huge amount of shapes and sizes. So they're going to have an application you need. Throwing it in the engine bay, and man, it's such a pleasure working with a lightweight battery instead of like struggling with a big heavy one in there. And however, we kind of have like a blacked out theme going on in here, and having this white cap on the battery case is tweaking my OCD a little bit, and I'm sure it's tweaking Pete's too. So XS Power, do not be offended, but we are considering putting black vinyl wrap over the top of the battery here just to make it blend in more with the engine bay. And I actually even emailed them and said, hey, do you guys offer these in different colors? And they are thinking about making like a blacked out edition or a black edition of these batteries, precisely because guys like us are kind of weird about wanting the batteries to, you know, match the rest of their engine bay. So send them an email and say, guys, we want a murdered out battery option, and maybe they'll make one for everybody. Because as much as I love the battery, the white, I don't know, the white doesn't really complement a lot of engine bays in my opinion. So small gripe for what is a very, very impressive battery. Little black vinyl later, and there we have our Black Series murdered out Darth Vader spec XS Power battery. And really we just need to put a little XS sticker on the top here to make it complete. But I think it certainly blends in better with the engine bay that way. There you go. Thank you very much, XS Power, for the support. Super stoked to have such a lightweight and high output battery in the engine bay.
One of the last missing pieces in this engine bay is this 3-port boost control solenoid from Link. As you guys recall, I forgot to order it, and it has arrived now, and I'm going to end up mounting it right here. So let's get to work. I did build this bracket, as you can see, real quick. I'm just gonna bolt up here, and I'll show you how everything comes together. And there you have it. Our boost control solenoid is hooked up. And I really want to give a shout out to DI, who makes this Easy Loom product, which is essentially like a loom that you would build a wiring harness out of. I use it as a supplementary thing, as you saw, to like wrap wires, and they include all different diameters of it. I really love it. You can see that that's what I was using. They have like really thick stuff here too, and of course they do include a little bit of the heat sleeve that would go over, and like these cool little tools to run the wiring through. And before we get a ton of comments about why I took this third vacuum line here and just stuffed it right back into the intake, this is just a bleed line where the air gets released, and sometimes you would have a nipple on the air intake to go back in it. In this situation, I'm just running it into here. You could leave this open, but I figured it looked nicer as such.
One of the last things we want to do in the engine bay is actually reinstall this OE heat barrier that goes on the underside of the hood. But man, the more we look at it, it is pretty disgusting, and it's kind of like deteriorated on the inside. It's kind of like separating and falling apart. I don't know. Like, you can see it's all like chewed up and stuff. So we thought about what else could we use, and we have some of this DEI heat blanket type material which has a adhesive back to it. So what we're thinking we'll do is just trace these shapes on the underside of the hood and adhere this underneath there. That'll prevent the heat from the turbo from damaging the paint on the hood. And I'm not too worried about the bracing section under here because it's got a big air gap behind it anyway, so I think it'll be just fine. But this on the underside of the skin, I think, will give us the protection we need, and will look a lot cleaner and more modern than that nasty.
Yeah, I kind of like the look of the plain red hood right now when you open the bay.
It does look good, I agree. But with that much heat, if this was an NA car, I'd say let's just leave it. But with that big old turbo there, I think we do need to protect the paint. As you can see, we've done 3 of the 4 spots that we want to cover with this reflective insulating barrier from DEI, and the way we've done it is to make a paper template first. So literally just took a sheet of paper over the area that you want to build the template for and press the paper along the edge of the shape, and it leaves a line, or sort of embossment on the paper, if you want to call it that.
Most of our hands are dirty from working on cars, so
true. So that leaves like a nice line
mark,
too.
Yeah.
Then you trim it out, you come and check to see how well it fits, you tune it up a bit. Once you're happy with the way the piece of paper fits, you transfer that pattern over onto this stuff, cut it out, and you're left with something like this, which we did leave a little on the big side so that we could tuck it up underneath the edges.
Now pull it back up and peel the rest of it, and you should be ready to drop in.
So the PT technique at this point was to just squeegee it in the hole here. It actually works remarkably well.
Whoa, look at that.
Not bad, eh?
Reflection perfection.
That's right. PT dropping those bars like a hip hop star over there. I love it. All right, so there you go, guys. I think that will protect the paint, and it certainly looks much nicer than that giant black ancient piece of insulation, basically, is what that stuff is. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comment section. Is this going to work, or is this going to cause a giant paint fail underneath here that we're going to regret? While we're under the hood, we are going to take one last precautionary measure here and smoke test this thing, because as we've learned in the past, sometimes you can go to the dyno and you've got boost leaks and you're like, oh, you got to track it down. Where is it? It can turn into a real nightmare. You could be paying the dyno by the hour and you're there trying to chase down a leak. So for this, we are using our O'Toole smoke tester. And as you can see, Pete's jammed our, this is like a boost leak down tester that he's jammed into the end of the intake here. And we're feeding the smoke in over here on the manifold. So we'll just fire this thing up. It will pump the whole system full of smoke, and then we'll see if we've got any leaks. And by the way, we found the perfect application for this excess power battery that makes, what was it, 3,300 amps or something. This thing is gonna power this. So we're gonna have smoke in this motor in 2 seconds.
DP, that did not take long.
That did not take long. No,
wow.
Woo! I feel like I should breathe that in and,
Oh, you know why? We got to turn that off.
Oh,
that is because it's coming through the filter.
The breather, of course.
We forgot. All right.
That's funny.
Well, we know it's working.
We do, but let's cap that off and try again.
Yeah, we'll have to fix that problem.
After letting the smoke build for a while, we were leaking out of the solenoid here, just out of the vent, so we plugged that. And we also have some smoke coming out of the wastegate, so we're thinking we just didn't tighten everything
I bet you any
down.
money the bolts there are not tight.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of were mocking things up, and so yeah, let's check that for tightness, but otherwise...
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything over here, so...
Yeah, I think we're looking pretty good otherwise.
It's looking good, man.
Just tightening down these little plugs to the spare air ports, and that was the only place we saw any smoke coming, so man, I think we're good to go actually. In the past we found lots of little spots on other motors, but this thing seems to be ready to party, so another good sign that the 2J shall dominate. As you can see, we've got our Supra up in the air on our quick jack, and what a great tool this thing is. Every time we use it, we're kind of amazed at how convenient and easy it is to use. And for you DIY guys with a home garage where you don't have the headspace to put in a 2-post or a 4-post lift, I think this is a really fantastic option. It's easy to use, it's been very reliable for us. It gets the car up high enough that you can get under there with enough room to do the work. We don't feel like the car is this far from your face. You can get better leverage with a bit of space to work in. So yeah, great tool, pretty inexpensive too. They're around $1,000, so I think they're really good money spent. So reason she's up in the air is because it's time to install our Space Invader here. This is an OEM transmission mount. Very simple, 4 nuts, 4 bolts. I'm just taking the other one out of there because it's stiffer. I believe it's a TRD mount. And we decided we wanted to go back to a softer OE mount just to reduce NVH.
DP, I was not expecting this to be such a difficult job here.
Yeah, it sounded easy when I was squatting there, didn't it?
Yeah, and it looked like it was going to be pretty easy until I got to the rear bolts over here on the mount. They are just like tucked in, and even with a stubby, I'm getting like a quarter of a turn like this. So it's gonna take me a while here, unfortunately. Whose idea was it to go with 4-inch downpipe here, DP? Look at this. I can't even get a socket on here, so I'm now having to go down to the manual way of extracting this bolt. And let's see if it's gonna clear the exhaust.
Oh wow, yeah, it is tight, isn't it?
It is, it's super close. I think we're gonna be okay, thank goodness. But yeah, it's, oh no. I mean, let's just leave that there, and I think if I extract this side right now, we can drop this whole thing and we'll see if it comes out.
I gotta say, PT, it's refreshing to see you, working on your back like the old chicken coop days here too.
Yeah, and middle of winter, this car is like radiating cold here, so it's it's certainly reminiscent of it. And these types of problems, it's funny how you crawl under a car and you're like, oh, I'll get this done, this will be super easy, and no, it's always a bit of a struggle. So hopefully this gearbox doesn't fall on my face.
We are supporting it with a jack.
Yes,
so
yeah, we are. Oh, look, it's rotating everything now, so it is coming apart here. All right, there we are. And this is our culprit. Let's get this guy out and we'll show you the difference between this and the OEM one.
So here's our TRD mount, which you can really only differentiate from the other one by a little pink dot on here. But you can also feel the difference in durometer of the rubber. Like if I squeeze this, there's really very little flex to it. And if I use my thumbs to like move it, you can see I can move it a little bit, but I'm using quite a lot of force to move that. And I am a very, very powerful man. So let's swap over the stock boy here, and we will redo the old thumb test. This is science we're doing, everybody. This is science. So
we're not making this up. All we did was we started this car up, and I could tell right away, I was like, there is definitely too much NVH. That mount was too stiff. The gearbox was rattling, like the shifter was moving a little bit. So I was like, okay, we got to go back, right? And
when you're in a street car and the shift knob is doing that, you might be on stiffer mounts than you need.
And this is the reason here. You can see.
So look at that. Like that is way stiffer. Now, admittedly, that
softer,
does introduce. Sorry, softer. That does introduce a lot of slop in the system, which might reduce shifting precision, but it'll certainly reduce that vibration, that NVH that we're trying to get rid of. So we've got both options. If we put this in there and I'm like, oh, it's too soft, it's too vague, we can always swap this guy back in there and just live with the NVH, but we figured again, street car, we want to enjoy this car on the street, so let's go back to the stock mount.
And a lot of guys do say that the TRD one is just too stiff, which is ironic.
Yeah.
Usually they're pretty good, but yeah, from the forums and all the information out there, it sounds like the OEM one is certainly the way to go.
Right. Or engine insulator, if you prefer.
Oh, is that what they're calling it these days? What we want to do is incorporate the lower plastic trim pieces and under tray back onto this car, obviously for aerodynamic purposes. Everything does seem to fit up nice. These will go back in with the oil cooler and all the oil cooler lines in place, so that looks like it's going to work well. However, with this piece here, you can see we have now marked this a little bit. I'm going to finish marking this. This should run along right here. Our intercooler is contacting this point right here, so it is just way too close, or it sits too low. So what I'm gonna do is come in, chop a piece out of this, and then kind of like start fitting it up to get this to go in. Because if you look at it, this is actually a really nice piece. It is kind of diverting air around. So we do have that front lip there now, but still, I certainly think it's worthwhile installing.
And that also connects to the main under tray too.
That's right, yeah. So if we want to use the main under tray, it's just, you want to use this kind of stuff, like we can leave it as is right now, but really you just want to bolt as much of this as you can. That's a lot of plastic and foam there. My lungs are feeling a little heavy, DP.
Yeah, I bet.
Probably not a good idea. I should have been wearing some face protection. We did get rid of this. It was too flimsy. It was kind of getting in the way. It didn't look like it was gonna bolt up properly, you can see. So that's kind of our trimmed out area for the intercooler, and this now bolts up so we can kind of finalize everything. So we'll throw this on and then we'll show you guys the final product here. I forgot how nice it is to have your fender liners and under tray, and a big bonus of that is you get a ton of rigidity in your bumper. You can see this thing does not move. If we had gone with that body kit, you just have a situation where this stuff does not fit in and you're left with flimsy stuff. So I think once again, we've made the right choice keeping this thing OEM plus.
Well guys, what do you think? Man, I don't know about you, but I am just over the moon with how well this build has turned out. It looks amazing. I really am very happy with the very clean aesthetic that we've gone with it. You know, there's parts of me that would have loved to have put that Riddick style kit on it, but it looks so good on, like, you know, classic JDM wheels with the classic Supra lines, the updated headlights and taillights, the paint's polished. All the wheel well liners and, you know, under trays are actually fitting up the way you would expect. So yeah, and of course that whole engine setup, thanks in large part to Vibe Performance, as well as Garrett and Architect Performance and many others, is going to make a whole bunch of power. But before I can do that, I do have a little bit of bad news to break to you first. This is the reality of our current situation. We've got two pristine Japanese cars in there that we do not want to drive on salty roads. So we're gonna have to wait for the weather to improve. It's been really a horrible January here with a huge amount of snow. We had a record snowstorm of like 42 centimeters here, and we've had more since then. And we salt the roads aggressively here, which means it's just not a good scenario for transporting these cars to the dyno. However, we will get there as soon as we can, and when we do get there, we've got some pretty exciting stuff coming for you. We've got a couple of drums of race gas here that we'll talk about in a second, but first, let's jump over to the table here and we'll talk about what we're gonna do with the turbos that you've seen on this build already. if you've been following from the start, you'll know that we originally started out with this Garrett G35 900, I think it is, right?
Yes, correct.
And this was, the plan to make big Supra power. And once we ran up against the issue with our original exhaust manifold just being too big and not friendly for recirculating the wastegates, that's when we got in touch with Ben from Arctec Performance, and we came up with this whole new plan of building a response monster motor with his cast manifold, and he recommended us stepping down to a G30 770 with a very small exhaust housing to make the most responsive setup possible. So we're actually running the G30 on there now with a 0.61 housing, a tiny housing. However, as you'll see from our little display here, we do also have a 101 housing for the G30, and for the G35, we have a 0.83 housing and a 0.101 housing. And we're gonna test all of these on the dyno. So when the weather does allow, we will go to the dyno and we're gonna test both of these setups so that we can put Ben's theory to the test about the smaller turbo and smallest housing working well, and just prove to ourselves what setup works best on a 2J for the kind of responsive setup we're really aiming to do here. So that I think is going to be a lot of fun and a lot of work. We'll probably end up spending multiple days at, I think, BMS Tuning. I haven't spoke to John there about it yet, but our hope is to use him since he's our nearest dyno shop and a good friend. As for the race gas, well, we've got 94 pump gas in there right now, and we wanted to be able to push this motor a little harder, and to do that, you need more octane. So we've got Sunoco's 260 GT100 here, which is an unleaded, oxygenated 100 octane, and this is the Evo 10. This is the highest rated octane unleaded fuel money can buy right now. It's a 105, highly oxygenated 105, unleaded. So we will test all three stages of those fuels. I know a lot of you would like to see us also test E85. We don't have it available here at the pump, and we don't have any barrels of it here. And maybe that's something we do in the future, but we wanted to test what we had available to us here in this marketplace. And I know E85 is kind of like the benchmark in some places, and again, maybe that's something we do in the future. But on these two cars, we're gonna run the 94 pump from Sunoco as well as these two setups. That's our plan at the dyno. I hope you're excited about it, because I know I'm really excited to see what power we can make with these different turbo setups and with these different fuels. We're gonna learn a whole bunch. We're gonna share all of that with you for free on the internet. But of course, if you wanted to contribute to the cost of all this experimenting, you could jump over onto patreon.com and throw us a few bucks there. We have a really great group of supporters, and if you come in at the, I think it's the $10 a month level, you can get your name in the credits. So watch till the end, everybody, and you'll see all of our supporters there, many of whom have been with us for years and years. So to those guys, thank you very much for your continued support. It means a lot to us. It really does help us keep these builds going, keep the lights on in here. This place is not cheap to heat when it's snowmageddon around here. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you found that an enjoyable end to what's been a really fun build, and a relatively painless one compared to certain other cars around here that have 3 letters in them that go something like GTR. Don't do it, everyone. Team Supra all the way.